Today, we bring you some news. King Charles gives Princess Anne an important royal role, and Camilla loses her title. In recent weeks, a series of unsubstantiated stories has sparked vigorous discourse among royal observers, political analysts, and the general populace over a possibly significant rearrangement at the apex of the British monarchy. Anonymous insider claim that King Charles Roman III is considering an unprecedented decision to strip his wife Camilla of her title as queen and to promote his sister, Princess Anne, to a far more influential role within the royal hierarchy. Despite the absence of any official confirmation from Buckingham Palace, the dissemination of these assertions has incited a fresh analysis of the legal, historical, and relational aspects of the monarchy. The findings suggest a motive based on apprehensions over public opinion and a tactical aim to enhance the institution's reputation for the future. The concerns involve the practicality and consequences of such an action, the constitutional principles that would regulate any modification, the historical precedents or absence thereof for changing titles and lines of authority, and the interpersonal dynamics among the senior royals that would influence any decision. This research strives to maintain all recorded facts and nuances while contextualizing these assertions within the framework of constitutional monarchy, royal tradition, and popular attitudes that either support or threaten the crown. The primary assertion circulated through various online platforms and social media is that King Charles has determined following an internal evaluation that Princess Anne possesses the attributes essential for enhancing the monarchy's image and for establishing a stronger connection between the crown and modern Britain. According to these unidentified sources, the king is contemplating revoking Camilla's title of queen, while concurrently establishing or designating a new senior position for Princess Anne. Initial stories used exaggerated language implying that Anne may ascend to the throne, a statement that garnered attention but is legally unfeasible as long as a sitting monarch and a clear line of succession exist. More nuanced narratives limited themselves to the concept of a new enhanced role for Anne, potentially as a senior advisor or in a consort-like function adapted to contemporary conditions without delineating how such a position would interact with the established line of succession or the official responsibilities of a reigning monarch. These rumors must be evaluated seriously, considering both their immediate consequences and the constraints of legal and practical feasibility. The studies indicate a clear and enduring dynamic within the royal narrative. The monarchy is sustained not just by law and tradition, but also by popular approval. Consequently, popular support is a vital political asset for every royal family. Conversely, the British Crown functions under a defined constitutional framework that limits any efforts to alter the monarchy based on transient popularity indicators. It is crucial to delineate the specific nature of the claims while identifying the institutional and historical barriers that might impede their realization. The proposal to revoke Camilla's title of queen and promote Princess Anne would constitute a remarkable reconfiguration of royal titles and authority. The assertion that such a modification is under consideration seems to be based on a combination of factors: perceptions of persistent public discomfort concerning Camilla's prior involvement in dissolution of the marriage between Charles and the late Diana, Princess of Wales, the lasting popularity and reputational assets of Princess Anne, whose commitment to public service has garnered her continual acclaim, and reportedly internal polling and strategic discussions among senior advisors intended to enhance the monarchy's long-term sustainability. Proponents of the alleged plan, as detailed by insiders, do not characterize it as punitive against Camilla, but rather as a pragmatic compromise aimed at mitigating lingering public animosity and ensuring a more favorable path for the institution. To see why these recommendations have intrigued observers, it is essential to succinctly outline the trajectories of the two women's public lives. Camilla's role in public life has been a subject of contention for an extended period. Her connection with Charles during his marriage to Diana has generated a narrative that is hard to dispel despite her years of public service as Duchess of Cornwall and the official acknowledgement she earned upon Charles's ascension as queen consort. The emotional impact of Diana's life and death remains significant for many. This collective memory has influenced responses to Camilla's public position, despite her ongoing commitment to humanitarian endeavors. Proponents of reform, as suggested by the anonymous reports, contend that mitigating persistent disquiz reputation. In contrast, Princess Anne has established a reputation for consistent, pragmatic public service throughout the years. She is often described as the most diligent member of the royal family, dedicating herself to many official engagements, sustaining extensive philanthropic patronage, and fostering respect among military and civic organizations. This combination of stability, expertise, and public confidence makes her a quintessential fit for an expanded public role. The justification provided by these sources is clear. By using Anne's established public reputation and her proven diligence, the Crown would project an image of continuity, responsibility, and unwavering trustworthiness at a time when such signals may be deemed essential. However, the stories lack clarity about the specifics of any planned new role for Princess Anne. Speculation varies from a formal advisory role to the establishment of a new senior post that would augment her public profile and executive impact on philanthropic and representational issues. The specifics about the construction of such an office, the statutory or prerogative powers it would include, and its interaction with the existing tasks and prerogatives of the sovereign and the heir apparent remain inadequately articulated by any reputable source. The lack of definitional clarity has facilitated supposition and prompted examination of the constitutional framework governing the British monarchy. Any rigorous evaluation of these rumors must begin with a comprehensive understanding of the legal principles governing succession and royal titles. The succession of the crown is determined by statutory law and established principles rather than personal choice. The Act of Settlement of 1701 defined fundamental criteria, which later law has further improved. The Succession to the Crown Act 2013 represented a substantial modernization. Its primary effects included the cessation of male preference primogeniture for individuals born after 28 October 2011, thereby establishing succession based on birth order, irrespective of sex, and the elimination of the disqualification from succession for individuals who marry a Roman Catholic. The aforementioned modifications, albeit significant, did not undermine the essential fact that the line of succession is legally established, and that Parliament, rather than the sovereign, independently has the legislative power to amend those regulations. This concept illustrates the constitutional fact that the Crown functions under the rule of law, and that modifications to inherited regulations need official parliamentary procedures instead than unilateral royal decree. The context is crucial in this situation. The Succession to the Crown Act was enacted after the Perth Agreement of 2011, when the governments of the Commonwealth nations agreed to certain modifications to the succession regulations and committed to requisite domestic legislative reforms. The intergovernmental coordination highlights a vital aspect of the contemporary monarchy. As the Crown serves as a collective institution among various independent states, the Commonwealth realm's alterations to the succession bear transnational consequences and are generally addressed through diplomatic and legislative processes involving those realms. The Perth Agreement resulted from discussion and mutual consent among the kingdoms. It demonstrated that coordinated change is feasible, albeit politically and administratively onerous. Consequently, any endeavor to modify the succession sequence or the constitutional standing of senior royals would not be only a domestic matter. According to the current legal framework, the direct heir to King Charles Roman III is his oldest son, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, followed by William's children in their birth order, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Princess Anne is positioned low in the line of succession due to the historical practice of male preference primogeniture at the time of her birth in 1950. Hence, she is not in a realistic position to ascend to the throne while direct heirs of King Charles are alive and eligible. For Princess Anne to ascend to the throne instead of closer heirs, an act of Parliament would be necessary to modify the order of succession or eliminate several individuals' claims, an undertaking That would constitute a constitutional upheaval of unprecedented magnitude since the 17th century. The abdication of Edward Roman VII serves as the most significant contemporary example of a drastic change at the apex of the monarchy in 1936. Edward's relinquishment of the crown to wed Wallis Simpson required official governmental approval and was enacted by an Act of Parliament. The episode highlights a crucial constitutional principle: the authority to alter the line of succession or revoke an individual's status is not solely held by the sovereign, but is conferred upon Parliament, and within the Commonwealth realms necessitates the approval of the respective governments of those realms. It is essential to distinguish between altering the line of succession and reallocating titles and responsibilities within the royal family. The sovereign has historically had certain prerogative rights over the conferral and designation of titles via instruments like letters patent. These devices have often been used to establish peerages, bestow dinctums, and grant specific honors. For instance, letters patent in the 19th century delineated the styles and titles to be used by members of the royal family. The sovereign's ability to use letters patent to implement measures that would fundamentally alter the constitutional relationship between the crown and its subjects is constrained. Although the monarch may theoretically choose not to designate a spouse as queen consort, the larger ramifications of such a choice would extend beyond simple nomenclature and would invoke inquiry pertinent to the political and legislative spheres. The designation queen consort is mostly a matter of tradition and politeness rather than constitutional power. A queen consort is the wife of a reigning king and lacks the sovereign's administrative authority or constitutional rights. Her role is based on her marriage to the monarch and tradition rather than an autonomous office. Queen Elizabeth Roman II's articulated sincere wish for Camilla to be designated as queen consort upon Charles's accession served as a clear and public endorsement of Camilla's role within the monarchy. Yet the title is inherently associated with her position as the king's spouse. The legal avenues for a queen consort to be stripped of her title are limited. Dissolution from the sovereign is a clear process. If a marriage were terminated, the ex-spouse would cease to be the consort. A formal legislative annulment of a spouse's title not predicated on divorce would lack contemporary precedents and would provoke intricate inquiries about both the legal connection of the married couple and the crown's constitutional ties with Parliament and the populace. Historical examination reveals that instances of significant redefinitions of responsibilities under the monarchy are few and contentious. The transformation of the consort's public function has often occurred via the evolution of conventions about public responsibilities and behind the scenes negotiations rather than through explicit legislative reform. The term Queen Mother is a courtesy designation used to signify the mother of a sovereign after her husband's death, distinguishing her from a reigning queen. This use was implemented to fulfill a specific public need for clarity and respect, while maintaining the constitutional order. Likewise, when Prince Philip adopted the style and title of Duke of Edinburgh, and subsequently withdrew from public responsibilities in his senior years, the arrangement was handled internally, within the family and household, rather than via public legislation. Such alterations reveal the flexibility in managing representation and responsibilities, highlighting the significant dependence on informal consensual agreements rather than explicit legislative changes. Any assertion that the king could by proclamation unilaterally revoke Camilla's title and confer that same status onto his sister is unlikely to withstand rigorous legal examination. Even if the sovereign were to pursue Parliament's collaboration, the political repercussions would be substantial. Eliminating the Prince of Wales from the line of succession would necessitate parliamentary legislation, political consensus throughout the United Kingdom, and in practice the concurrence of governments of other Commonwealth realms sharing the same constitutional monarchy. These domains have traditionally been referenced in such issues. Although the 1936 abdication event exemplifies the feasibility of legislative modification, it also highlights the significant political complexities associated with amending the succession order or the reigning monarch's matrimonial circumstances. Consequently, it is logical to assert that any attempt to disinherit a direct heir in favor of an aunt or to establish a new constitutional role for a sister of the sovereign that supersedes the heir apparent would be deemed politically and legally implausible by nearly all constitutional scholars. In addition to the legal challenges, the approach addresses the intricate relationship between reputation, because disinterest is stillness, and the performative dimensions of royal responsibilities. Camilla's transition from a subject of popular disdain to an acknowledged royal consort has been lengthy and well orchestrated. Born Camilla Shand in 1947, she met the then Prince Charles in the early 1970s. Their first connection ended when Charles enlisted in the Royal Navy and later wed Lady Diana Spencer. Camilla wed Andrew Parker Bass in 1973 and then withdrew from the public sphere for a while. Camilla's enduring friendship and subsequent relationship with Charles, which gained notoriety amid the disintegration of Charles's marriage to Diana, framed her as the third person in the narrative. The tabloid media and public opinion soured significantly against her during the 1990s, especially following Diana's death in 1997. Camilla's reintegration into public life was gradual. She and Charles made their first significant public appearance together in 1999, and their civil marriage in 2005 was a crucial milestone. At that time, sensitivities dictated that she choose the title Duchess of Cornwall instead than Princess of Wales, mirroring popular feeling and the lasting symbolic significance of Diana as Princess of Wales. In subsequent years, Camilla developed a portfolio of philanthropic endeavors focused on literacy, assistance for sexual assault survivors, and osteoporosis awareness, while engaging in other activities that exemplified her dedication to public service. The shift in public perception was neither swift nor total. However, the amalgamation of ongoing philanthropic efforts, public engagements highlighting amiability and accessibility, and the eventual endorsement by the late Queen Elizabeth Roman II facilitated Camilla's gradual restoration in the public's esteem. The Queen's statement during her Platinum Jubilee address in 2022, expressing her sincere wish for Camilla to be recognized as Queen Consort upon Charles's accession, unequivocally resolved enduring uncertainties around Camilla's official status within the monarchy. The 2023 coronation of King Charles Roman III and Queen Camilla was generally seen as the apex of that trend. Nevertheless, circulating reports indicate that despite advancements in acceptability, a portion of the populace continues to have anxiety around Camilla. The persistent uncertainty, as reported by unnamed sources, has seemingly prompted internal deliberations over measures to alleviate public sentiment despite the potential constitutional complications of such measures. The public unease is characterized by its selective nature. It is not universally shared among the population and has significantly lessened in recent years. However, it persists among communities where Diana's memory is still impactful and among demographic groups influenced by the tabloid narratives of the 1990s. Public memory is disparate and generational. Older generations may possess more vivid memories and intense emotional reactions, whilst newer generations shaped by a distinct media landscape may exhibit indifference or even approval of Camilla's participation. Princess Anne's appearance in these publications as an alternate center of public attention is deliberate. Anne Elizabeth Alice Louise, born on 15th of August 1950, is the second offspring and only daughter of Queen Elizabeth Roman II and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. From a young age, she had a robust autonomous disposition and a notable aptitude for hard work and perseverance. In contrast to the elder male royals who were explicitly groomed and trained for dynastic responsibilities, Anne followed a public trajectory characterized by a pragmatic dedication to duty, resilience, and a predilection for action rather than formality. Her formal responsibilities started in earnest post-education, and she swiftly garnered a reputation for managing a greater number of commitments than the majority of her contemporaries. Her exercise levels have been remarkable in recent years. Recent reports indicated that she participated in several hundred formal events in a given year, much surpassing the involvement of several senior royals. These interactions have generally concentrated on pragmatic institutions and community based organizations, factories and industrial locations, agricultural exhibitions, military units and barracks, charity centers, and local service organizations. Her methodology is distinguished by a prioritization on substance over spectacle. She often engages with individuals and local involved in the quotidian operations of the country, therefore fostering an image of the Crown as responsive to the actual requirements of citizens and localities. Anne's pattern of participation has rendered her notably prominent in regions where daily labor and institutional stability are paramount. Agricultural villages, military installations, and charity-driven social services, so strengthening the notion that she personifies the Crown's service ethos. Princess Anne serves as patron for a vast number of charities exceeding 300 organizations. Save the Children, one of the most distinguished and enduring organizations, has had her as president since 1970. Her philanthropic efforts beyond mere ceremonial patronage. She has traveled and engaged in some of the globe's most arduous and perilous settings to champion humanitarian aid, children's rights, and the well-being of those affected by war and tragedy. In contrast to some of her younger cousins, Anne has generally avoided a media-centric approach. A significant portion of her work has been carried out with less fanfare, so confirming ideas of seriousness and dedication. Her individual accomplishments enhance her public image. She is a distinguished equestrian, having competed at the highest international levels and represented Great Britain in the 1976 Montreal Olympics as a member of the equestrian team, an accomplishment that distinguishes her as the only British royal to have participated in an Olympiad. The record of competitive effort shaped the public's opinion of Anne as tenacious and tough. Her military affiliations are substantial. She has many honorary levels and titles within the United Kingdom's armed forces, and is recognized for her active participation in military activities, which seemingly garners respect from service members. A pivotal moment that encapsulated public sentiment regarding her sense of duty transpired during the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth Roman II, when Princess Anne engaged in the Vigil of the Princes, standing at the coffin in full military regalia, an extraordinary and solemn gesture that highlighted both personal dedication and institutional continuity. Her personal choices have shown a pragmatic approach to the monarchy's modernization. In a notable exception from tradition, Princess Anne and her first spouse, Captain Mark Phillips, opted not to bestow royal titles upon their children, Peter Phillips and Zara Tyndall. Her expressed explanation, desiring for them to experience further independence from the limitations of royal existence, has garnered public commendation from her children and is seen as indicative of her progressive mindset. This decision, which prioritized the well-being and liberty of her progeny above dynastic privilege, has been referenced by observers as more evidence of her pragmatic disposition. The aspects of Princess Anne's background explain in part her major role in speculative narratives. She amalgamates institutional expertise, a reputation for outstanding service, and considerable public confidence. At a time when the monarchy confronts inquiries over its relevance and public worth, the notion of promoting a person who exemplifies responsibility and dependability has an inherent allure for those aiming to bolster faith in the institution. However, the conversion of a prominent royal into a constitutionally authorized figure requires meticulous specification of the power's duties and symbolic significance associated with any newly established function. The existing studies lack definitive definitions. They only suggest an enhanced profile for Princess Anne, without detailing the legal or administrative processes by which that enhancement might be implemented. The issue is further complicated by persistent palace rumor and speculation on the dynamics of the royal marriage and the internal relationships among senior family members. Throughout the years, there have been sporadic reports of tension or distance between King Charles and Queen Camilla. Observers have remarked that the couple frequently resides in separate primary residences, the king at Highgrove House and the queen at Ray Mill House, which aides characterize as pragmatic arrangements that afford both individuals personal space and autonomy within a supportive partnership. The anonymous sources have seen these arrangements as indicative of marital discord. but the palace has a steadfast policy of refraining from commenting on personal or private issues. Consequently, it is challenging to regard allegations of marital strife as anything beyond mere conjecture, based only on public evidence. The alleged tension, exacerbated by the king's recent health issues, has intensified the speculation. Unverified claims reference sources asserting that Camilla has advised the king to reduce his public engagements and to comply more rigorously with medical recommendations, a typically private issue. Until officially revealed by the palace, the impact of any significant or chronic sickness on choices about the monarchy's future form would be considerable. It would also be profoundly private and often addressed via family and constitutional avenues rather than public declarations. In these situations, the distinction between judicious planning and exaggerated rumor becomes dangerously blurred. Internal familial dynamics are crucial when evaluating the potential reception of such a scheme inside the dynasty. Princess Anne and Queen Camilla have typically exhibited a cordial public rapport, attending various engagements together. However, biographers have indicated a historical coolness between the two, stemming from the intricacies of their past associations with the Prince of Wales. It is hard to ascertain from available information whether the purported coldness would result in significant resistance to any proposal suggested by the king. Likewise, the response of other senior royals, especially Prince William the heir apparent, has been depicted in unsubstantiated stories as one of incredulity at the mere proposition. This attitude seems credible considering William's obligations and his expressed desire for a stable and predictable succession. The heir apparent would certainly find a prominent restructuring that causes constitutional uncertainty, or is viewed as a manipulation of hereditary principles undesirable. The interactions transcend the immediate family. Political players and elected authorities would inevitably be involved in any significant reconfiguration. In the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister and Cabinet typically refrain from interfering in the details of royal household arrangements. Nevertheless, they do counsel the sovereign on constitutional issues and are obligated to uphold the public interest. Any substantial modification impacting succession titles with constitutional ramifications or the sovereign's public function would position ministers precariously reconciling deference to royal privacy and continuity with their duty to maintain constitutional standards and, when warranted, to ensure parliamentary oversight. Furthermore, devolved governments and local government officials may recognize reputational ramifications that might manifest as political inquiries inside legislators around the UK. The ramifications may extend to Commonwealth countries who would anticipate consultation over any alterations having transnational consequences. The overarching discourse these rumors evoke is the enduring conflict within the contemporary monarchy. The equilibrium between fidelity to tradition and the pragmatic need to evolve with a changing society. The legitimacy of the monarchy has always depended on the dual foundations of continuity and the rule of law. In that approach, the crown's power is not subject to continual adjustment, but is rooted in a legacy of constitutional and cultural norms that provide symbolic stability. Critics contend that abandoning or significantly altering these values in favor of a popularity-driven strategy would fundamentally change the institution's essence. It would risk transforming a fundamental constitutional office into a mere public relations initiative. In contrast, proponents of a more flexible approach argue that the monarchy endures only via popular approval, and that adapting to changes in public feeling may be crucial for its ongoing significance. In several modern constitutional monarchies, the personalization of the crown, the degree to which individual royals represent certain public qualities, significantly contributes to maintaining popular support. From this viewpoint, promoting a character such as Princess Anne, whose public image is esteemed, may be seen as a strategy for sensible institutional preservation, matching the monarchy's public representation with the qualities most likely to foster popular confidence. The anonymous sources indicate a possible conflict between the enduring requirements of constitutional continuity and the immediate need to provide an image of strong, service-oriented leadership. The institutional ramifications of even attempting to follow such a course are formidable. An action that modified titles, reallocated public prominence, or implied that succession would be swayed by current views might generate constitutional ambiguity, political contention, and family strife. It may also set a precedent for future interventions that prioritize public sentiment above inherited principles. This option would undoubtedly incite intense discourse among constitutional scholars, legislators, and the public over the essence and function of hereditary monarchy within a democratic framework. Historical events demonstrate the capacity for conflict and upheaval. The abdication issue of 1936 necessitated a swift and exceptional judicial reaction. It also subjected the monarchy to intense political examination and enduring inquiries about the interplay between personal decisions and public responsibilities. Controversies in the late 20th century, including the divorce of Charles and Diana and the examination of other royal marriages, elicited significant media scrutiny and ultimately fostered a progressive modernization in the institution's approach to public relations and private crisis. The incidents indicate that the monarchy can withstand challenges, but they also demonstrate the significant impact that public controversy and disputed narratives may have on its legitimacy. Methodically restructuring titles or duties to mitigate sentiment risks emphasizing crisis management as the principal governance approach for the royal family. Currently, the assertions of King Charles's intention to revoke Camilla's title and promote Princess Anne remain unsubstantiated. Buckingham Palace has not provided any official statement to validate these reports, nor has there been any legislative action or public notification indicating a forthcoming reconfiguration. The narratives may originate from palace intrigue, embellished rumors, or a calculated effort by unidentified individuals to test the waters using public conjecture as a kind of informal consultation. The use of trial balloons or controlled leaks has a long-standing tradition in politics. Rumors may be disseminated to assess reactions without binding any decision-maker to a particular course of action. Speculative reports may fulfill several purposes. They may serve as tools of persuasion used by counselors to steer public discourse in a preferred direction. They may serve as tactical diversions intended to divert attention from other issues. They may represent genuine internal discussions that are at an embryonic phase and have not yet solidified into policy. They might be wholly fabricated for commercial purposes, catering to the insatiable need of tabloids and social media for spectacular assertions. Differentiating between these options in the absence of concrete data is challenging. Caution advises regarding the reports as theoretical scenarios rather than verified plans. Regardless of their origin, the tales reveal certain persistent realities about the modern monarchy. The institution persists in functioning within a mediated public realm, where reputations are influenced equally by historical narratives and media portrayals as by contemporary actions. Secondly, public emotion continues to be a significant factor in assessing the monarchy's popularity, despite constitutional power being based on legislation and history. The senior members of the royal family serve as public symbols and possess personal histories and connections that shape their public perception. These private aspects may significantly impact public opinion when they align with wider cultural narratives. The scenario highlights the arduous challenge of navigating an antiquated institution amid contemporary upheaval. The shift from the lengthy and stabilizing reign of Queen Elizabeth II to the present era of King Charles is likely to prompt a reevaluation of role styles and priorities. Every king must address issues of legacy, health, and succession, while adhering to the constraints established by law and tradition. King Charles's challenge, regardless of the veracity of the spreading rumors, is to harmonize the need to maintain constitutional continuity with the necessity of conveying relevance and moral authority to a varied and evolving populace. The royal family may use pragmatic measures within current constitutional limitations to alleviate reputational problems without undermining core principles. This encompasses reallocating ceremonial responsibilities among senior working royals to maintain visible service continuity, elucidating and disseminating the charitable and representational roles of prominent figures for public comprehension, enhancing communication with regional and community leaders to illustrate the monarchy's support for everyday institutions, and commissioning independent evaluations of the communication strategy to adapt to evolving media landscapes, administrative strategies such as precisely defined timetables, collaborative appearances that exemplify unity and purpose, and meticulously articulated public pronouncements about duties and responsibilities could be helpful. None of these steps would modify succession or constitutional status. Rather, they might influence public opinion in ways that align with the purported motivations behind the anonymous insider's recommendations, highlighting duty, competence, and connection. Conversely, if policymakers were to consider legally formal changes to titles or succession, the institution would likely be compelled to engage in an extended constitutional and political dialogue with elected governments across the realms. The procedure would include parliamentary examination, potential contributions from the Privy Council, and discussions with the governments of the Commonwealth states, a sequence that would be politically sensitive and technically complex. This would need a comprehensive legal examination of the interplay between any letters patent or legislation and the existing constitutional instruments, as well as the domestic laws of each jurisdiction. In summary, it would reproduce on a broader and more contentious scale the dynamics previously observable in the Perth Agreement process. Due to political dangers and institutional sensitivities, the barrier for pursuing such a course is understandably elevated. Until an official declaration is made, the situation remains one of observation and inference rather than proven alteration. The monarchy may be on the verge of transformation, or it may just be the focus of yet another instance of spectacular conjecture that will dissipate without impact. The Crown's durability will rely on its capacity to harmonize respect for established constitutional values with prudent, candid answers to popular expectations. King Charles Roman III and his advisors must navigate legal limitations, familial allegiances, and the intricate dynamics of public sentiment. A series of evaluations that will influence not only the destinies of specific titles and positions, but also the fundamental nature of monarchy in the 21st century. In the short term, observers should monitor certain indicators that may reveal the veracity of the rumors. Initially, any formal change in titles or styles would typically be followed by letters patent, a formal declaration from Buckingham Palace, and probable comments from Downing Street explaining the constitutional implications involved. Secondly, contact with the governments of the Commonwealth realms via written notifications, diplomatic channels, or formal meetings would be anticipated if succession or other issues having interim ramifications were involved. Third, any substantial internal reorganization of responsibilities that enhances Princess Anne's public involvement would likely include a redistribution of patronages and a public itinerary that clearly reflects the policy objectives. In the absence of such indicators, it is reasonable to conclude that the stories represent conjecture rather than an impending constitutional initiative. Prolonged discussions on the monarchy's future are, however, unavoidable throughout the UK and beyond Republican sentiment. Demands for more transparency and requests for the modernization of public institution governance contribute to a broader discourse on the relevance of hereditary monarchy in modern democratic society. The dialogue is shaped by generational transformation, changing cultural values, and the dynamic media environment. The Crown's reaction, be it via gradual adaptation, a reinvigorated focus on public service, or interaction with democratic institutions, will determine public perceptions and affect institutions' legitimacy. This story serves as a case study on the operation of rumors inside political systems that integrate formal legal frameworks with rigorous public oversight. It illustrates that under constitutional monarchy, the symbolic aspects of the office are almost as significant as the formal legality. The manner in which individuals connect with personalities, narratives, and personal accounts may generate influences that extend into the domain of constitutional potentiality. However, it also illustrates the counterbalancing influence of existing legal frameworks. Law and tradition serve as constraints that render abrupt, drastic changes hard to accomplish without broad consensus. In summary, the assertions about the removal of Camilla's title as queen and the promotion of Princess Anne reflect a fundamental need for a monarchy represented by individuals who garner widespread popular esteem. However, they confront the stringent realities of constitutional law, the nuances of familial dynamics, and the political intricacies involved in any restructuring of the crown. In the absence of contrary evidence, they should be seen as intriguing conjecture, a testament to both the flexibility and significant limitations of an institution whose power is derived from tradition, legislation, and the tenuous nature of public respect.